Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. Episode number 30, man. We made it.
30.
30 episodes, man. Sheesh.
Awesome.
That's awesome, I think. 30
It
episodes.
is. That's good.
30 weeks of just
Sharing it.
sharing truth,
challenges
sound information, real conversations. It's been a blast. Especially Steve, how's 30 episodes been, or 29 episodes leading up to this 30?
Correct.
How's it been?
Great.
It's been great. Fantastic.
Fantastic.
I know you're ready to jump in episode 30. Now, just for any new viewers, episode 30 is an extension from episode 29, which we're discussing, does God exist? And it's a question that we've all asked ourselves and will ask ourselves in our lifetime. So we walked through different audiences and how we should address them. We started out with dealing with a believer. And if you're a believer to a believer, it's easier to talk about the existence of God through testimony, through experiential knowledge. Mm-hmm. We recognize that when it comes to dealing with people who don't have any church background, who I want evidence. And by that they mean they want scientific evidence. Mm-hmm. Some people dealing with philosophy and logic, they may want that as well too, but they want different kind of evidence. And as you can see, our Bibles are not here on the table because it's not that we don't believe in the Bible, but it's...
I got mine ready just in case. Just in case.
It's because they don't if they don't believe in God, they're not going to believe in the God that we're referencing in the Bible.
Right.
And so it's a waste of time to say, well, the reason you should believe in God is because right here it says da da da. They're going to say, I don't even believe he exists, so why are you quoting from something that has him in it? Mm-hmm. So that's why you don't see the Bibles out here today. And then what are you going to do? Most believers in their mindset will say, I'm going to pray for you. And I think that's great. All right?
Do that.
Don't forget that. That's very important. But now you need to also now educate. Pray and educate. And what do we do? And so here, last episode 29, we walked through some things, right? And a good starting point is not even to address the biology of how humans got here. Right. Let's just go straight to the physics. Right? Everybody believes that the universe existed. So then
and it's a real universe.
Yeah, that we're not living in the Matrix or something like some other so we recognize that. It's an easy place to start with. It's not too emotional. Boom, let's address that. And so we worked through some scientific information. We even went through some philosophical information. We talked about how you can't count up to infinity, and you can't count down from infinity, because while there may be a potential infinite amount of things, there is no actual, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody can say 1, 2 and get to like millions and trillions and then say infinity, because there's always going to be a number before that. Mm-hmm. There is no actual infinity. Mm-hmm. We use it as a placeholder, but there is no actual. Mm-hmm. And then we recognize, well, if that's the case, then you can't say that the universe always existed, because we're in 2020. So how did we get to 2020 unless there was 2019? Mm-hmm. All right. So then there was 2018, and then we go backwards. If you say it always existed,
going all the way back to infinity.
Yeah, we have to count all the way back to infinity if it always existed.
And you can't get there.
And we can't get there because there's no actual infinity that you can count down or up from. And so then we addressed, the last piece we talked about was the second law of thermodynamics. Mm-hmm. And we talked about how energy is being fed into a closed system, and it will become increasingly this disorder, which is, we talked about entropy. And we talked about how eventually the universe will reach this state of equilibrium, mm-hmm. where temperature and pressure are all the same everywhere, and the universe will have this like heat death. And the illustration to think about is, if you have any type of bottle, whether it's a bottle of water, if you think about somebody injecting some gas or yeah, injecting some gas in that bottle, and then they tighten up the bottle. So they open the bottle, inject it, and close the bottle top up. Eventually, what should happen is the gas doesn't just stay in one corner.
Right.
It eventually fizzles out to where everything in that bottle gets the gas. And that's how the universe should be based upon science, based upon the second law of thermodynamics. We haven't reached that yet. All right. The universe is a closed system, and we haven't reached that yet.
And that's a fact. It's not something
Yeah.
that's a fact. So if you understand how we're using science, and it is a fact. This equilibrium has not occurred yet.
It has not occurred yet.
That
And
means
that's with
something.
finite amount of time, right? Because we have finite amount of time. So that means if there was an eternal amount of
would've been there
time,
by
we
now.
would have already reached that, and we haven't. So
And we wouldn't
science,
exist
Yeah.
inside the equilibrium.
We
so we
wouldn't.
wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We'd be dead. Just I want you to understand how science plays itself.
well, and just know too, there's good science and there's bad science, or how I should better say it, there's good scientists and they're bad scientists, because what we're addressing here is science. We have no issue with it, and we're
I
believers.
love it. I love science.
But you have some issues and things, macro evolution. But anyways, we did all that to get to this logically valid argument that whatever begins to exist has a cause. Okay, the universe began to exist,
Yep.
therefore the universe has a cause.
So let's just on that. Let's just think about this. So there's an illustration that we both are familiar with, Jack and I, from this book that we read. So if you were walking in the woods and you saw a orange ball, right? You would ask yourself how it got there.
Yeah.
You would assume it got there somehow, but you realize it didn't just poof and start existing in the middle of the woods, this orange ball. You would go through your mind and say, somebody must have left it here. Maybe a kid was here yesterday. Somebody went through the woods and left their ball behind. But you would say there was a cause for that ball to exist. Why do we now look at this big ball called the universe and then say, and we don't say the same thing, like, what? How did it get here?
Right.
Why aren't we going through our mind and go through the questions like we'd go through our mind with an orange ball in the middle of the woods as we were walking? We notice it and we understand it didn't just poof out of nowhere. There was a cause for it being there. So now we have this huge ball called the universe. Why are we not doing the same thing? Why we should be like, there was a reason for this universe to exist. Like, how did it get here? Right?
Right.
And therefore, it should make it that much real to you that what we're dealing with is real science and real questions and real evidences that will help conclude to a logical reason for why the universe exists and how it exists.
Yeah. I mean, it's even to the point that there are some cosmologists, people who are not believers, but just people who study the cosmos, that state that the universe was expanding. I mean, even Einstein tried to do as much as he could to fudge numbers in his general theory of relativity, where he knew that either the universe was exploding or imploding. So cosmologists know, who are not even believers, that the universe is expanding. And if anything is expanding, that means it must have a beginning point for you to say it expanded.
Correct.
So I think that there's enough information out there. Sometimes people just get intimidated by some people in the science realm, and as we do with anything in this culture, we listen to what's been the norm said. But I want to go back and say, because now we're going to transition into a question I want to have, but I want to go back to, with all the evidence that we talked about, we're still trying to prove the existence of God, and we're left with whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause, okay? And so we said, well, hey, it could be three reasons for this cause. It could be physical necessity, it could be chance, or it could be that there's actually a designer. And we worked through physical necessity, and we worked through chance, and it just...
Not plausible enough.
Just not plausible enough based on the information. So my question then is, all right, let's say that God is the cause of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. Which would then, I guess, make him exist, obviously.
Correct.
My question is, well, I have two questions. One is, what qualifies God to be put in that discussion of a cause, right? Like the way that we talk about physical necessity and chance, right? Which is possibility, right?
Possible.
Yeah. What throws God in there as a cause? Okay.
Yep.
And and then after you answer that, I have my next question.
Well, I think what you're saying is then why would we conclude that it has to be why does it have to be God? Why can't it be something else?
Yeah.
Because again, we're looking at everything that exists and come to the conclusion that there had to be something greater than all that exists outside of all of that for that outside of all that to make it happen.
When you say outside of all that,
So
explain.
outside of all physical attributes, all physical existences. So any aspect of the universe that exists, when to your question, why does it have to be God, right? Mm-hmm. So when God is the being,
Yeah.
and so we're
the greatest maximum being.
right?
We talk
So
about.
we're talking about a being. So we're saying then that it has to be something outside of all of this physical world has to be outside of that for it to be powerful enough to create all of that out of nothing. And so it becomes a being, and therefore it becomes God. That's the term we use as that being.
Got you. So basically, what you're saying is, we don't really care. Don't take away our Christian
Wait
card.
a minute. So before I know what you're about to do. Start with where the person is at.
Right.
Where the person is at is not at Jesus Christ as Lord.
Yeah.
They're at an intelligence. So that intelligence is what we call God.
Right.
And that's the title we give that existence. God. You with me?
Okay.
So that's why we say God. But it's an intelligence, it's a being, it's an existence. Mm-hmm. Now, for that person to come to that conclusion, at least they have that. If they have that, that's great, because now we can now speak in the shape who that God is. Like Paul said at Mars Hill, him declare I unto you.
Right.
But they have to get there first.
Agreed. Okay. So with that being said, who created God?
That's a non-existing question, really. That's really
if we're gonna,
in the question of who created God, we already established that everything outside of all things leads to the conclusion of this being we simply call God. And therefore, outside of he is the supreme.
We said whatever exists has a cause.
No, what I'm saying, yes, within the realm of the physics, not in the realm of this being. This being, for him to be God, is all of that. He is that. He cannot be created.
So you're saying that
he's not the supreme of this. He is supreme of anything that would.
Okay, so let's back up here.
All right, go ahead.
Our argument said whatever exists has a cause.
Correct.
Whatever exists.
Correct.
The universe exists.
Therefore, it has a cause.
Right.
Walk me through the logic. I get it.
So God exists. Mm. So why are we changing? Is God not held to the logical argument?
No, he's not. How could he be? He's the one that created all of that. His existence brings forth all of that. So he does not he cannot be considered created. That would make him no longer God, because then there'd be something greater than him that we'd have to now call God.
Okay.
And then if you're going to use the same logic, well then who created God? Well, now we're going to go a step further and call, well, we got now God.
Okay. So real quick, my co-host is not
playing fair.
He's not paying attention carefully.
Paying attention.
He's listening, but to avoid any confusion, the argument is whatever begins to exist has a cause.
Correct.
What I asked Pastor Steve, I changed the argument to see if he was going to pay attention, and I said whatever exists has a cause, and that is not true.
I was really answering him, but okay, I'm going to let him have his win. Go ahead and have
Because
your win.
for a reason.
I get it I get it for your reason.
Your conclusion makes sense, but we need to give pushback for our audience to understand something.
Sure.
Everything that we talked about the ball that just shows up in the woods, began to exist. It had a beginning point. The universe, it had a beginning. The argument isn't whatever exists, because then that is right. Then God would have a cause because he exists. But the statement is whatever began to exist. We have a time frame. This phone had a time frame. It didn't always exist. Therefore, it had a cause.
Correct.
What you are expressing about God is that all the elements in the universe that began to exist, if he's the cause of this, then he's going to have to be greater than this, which means if the elements in the universe are time oriented, he's timeless. If the elements take up space, he's spaceless. If there's a certain amount of power, and then he's all powerful. As you were stating, but I think it's very, very important for the audience to understand that it's not whatever exists has a cause.
Correct.
It's whatever began to exist. So the question, you are correct, is absurd that anybody would ask, well, what created God? Because you said whatever exists has a cause. No. Whatever begins to exist, or whatever had a beginning point. God never had a beginning point.
Correct.
Therefore, there is no eternal past with God that you can say, well, what if he has the eternal past?
Right.
No. Because he exists outside of time. He's not bound to it. Now, he will step into time.
Because he can.
But just the way like he steps into the universe when he so chooses to. But I think that's very important when people want to say, well, what created God if everything exists?
Sure. No, I get it. I mean, I'm happy that you pointed out, because you do have to be mindful of the wording, because it is very true.
I think
begins to exist versus exists.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think at that point we ask ourselves, if a person can break down and say, I know we don't get something from nothing. I know that this universe did have a beginning point because we can't get to that. The cause. The most plausible sense is you may not use the word God, but whatever this cause is, okay, it's the cause that did create this universe, and it's powerful. I don't know if I want to use the word God yet.
Fine.
I don't give a care at this time, at that moment.
At least for that moment. They recognize then there's something outside of time, and there's something outside of naturalism.
That's powerful. That's intelligent.
Yes.
And the last point is that is actually personal, right? It's not abstract like a bunch of numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't see anything where matter creates a mind, but we do see mind creating mind. We see human beings creating human beings, but we don't see matter creating a mind. We don't see that. So there's nothing for us to conclude that, well, it could just be a bunch of matter or some numbers that created the universe. No, because everything that has a mind creates a mind. So at least we know then this God has to be personal enough to do that. So with that being said, I think we've done enough to bring a person to a conclusion that you may not use the word God, but whatever it is that you're saying that existed outside of this and was powerful, we're saying that it is God. And therefore, that is our evidence that we would say God exists. But now I want to flip that with the last couple of minutes of this, right? And I want to look at a world. I want to actually be in this agnostic shoes or this atheist shoes, and I want to say, and I want to pose you this question, so you can be in those shoes too. What is life, or what does this world look like if God doesn't exist?
Oh my glory! How could you It'd be full of chaos. It would be full of meaninglessness. There'd be no meaning behind it.
Why would you say that there will be no meaning?
Because where would that mean? How would you know what the meaning of it? How would you know what the meaning of it is? How would you know what the meaning of life is really about if God did not exist? Because if everything is, if as we said earlier, being personal, he has a personal desire for man to experience the meaning of life and enjoy the meaning of life. So
Correct.
if there's no consciousness of that, then what would be the purpose of life? I'm just existing to die? That's horrible. It's a horrible way of going through life. Horrible.
So you're saying there is no meaning. So what is
There would be, if God did not exist, then your hope is in what? What is your hope in?
in this current life?
And what is your hope
In
in this current life? What like? And then at the end, like, what hope is there? Like, to just go through life and just die? What? It doesn't even sound fun. Like, please take me out of this world. Please remove me immediately.
well, maybe people can
Paul
put their
said we are all men most miserable.
maybe Pastor Steve, people will create their own meanings in life.
At the end, it's all over. So therefore, it's like, I've done all this just to die. What?
You sound like Solomon in Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
So life just has no value then without God.
No value, none.
Well, let me ask you
Because
this.
you wouldn't understand its value. You wouldn't. There would be like, there would be.
You said chaos, right?
There would be chaos.
Explain that.
All right. So
I
first,
want to get people to
yeah.
see and just really visualize this, since you know, even though we've already proved the existence of God, but now let's look at it without God.
Where would our morality come from? Like, if we have no reference point to live by, to standardize morality,
Evolution, social conditioning, being
stop.
around.
Evolution in and of itself could not give us morality. How would an abstract be able to attach itself to my conscience to point me in that direction? It's an there's no way it would educate me. It doesn't.
The culture that we live in.
But where did the culture get it from? Like, what's the standard? What's the reference point? That's the chaos. Because we would all be left to our own imagination. We'd be all left to our own feelings and belief, and we would just annihilate each other. Because we would feel like, I'm okay to do that. And if we follow the process of evolution, I would have to kill you because the strong survive. I don't know who you are, and I feel like I need to survive, so I got to kill you before you kill me. So I got to make sure I'm the stronger one and I kill you. Evolution.
And yeah, and you use murder. That's a good way to get more visualization out of
But why
people.
is it murder?
Well, right.
Where's the standard of reference
True
point?
True that. It's not
Why
even
is it
murder.
murder?
Rape. These things
why
are not.
is it rape?
It's
I
not
should be
rape.
able,
It's just.
if God didn't exist, I should be able to walk around and have sex with any woman, whether she said yay or nay. Because who said that's wrong? If I want to do it, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's no reference point of identifying the moral compass that we should be holding to and understanding the greatest good it brings to us because of this moral standard.
It's like God talking to Israel, and he's just saying that every man is doing what is right in their own eyes.
And they did, according to their own imagination.
So you see that, and I think that's very important for viewers and people, even people who are agnostic and who are atheists. As much as you want to remove God out of the picture, look at what you're saying without God in the picture. There is no moral standard. It's just your opinion. You could tell me all day long what I did was wrong, but
that's your opinion because you have no standard to govern it by.
Yeah, you could even tell me, well, the government says that it's wrong, but there's another country that could say that it's right. And so you find this, there's no objective or absolute truths or values. So like you said, morality's gone. So there's no value. It's meaningless. We're just going to die.
There's civilizations that used to kill babies. Oh, I'm sorry. That's present time, isn't it?
I think that...
Oh, you ain't going there, huh?
I think that that's for another discussion.
I'm just saying.
Where we can dialogue into that more.
But there were civilizations that believed in killing children. A lot of people today would be like, oh my goodness, that's bad. But we have it going on today also.
Yeah. Yes. We'll get to that discussion.
Okay.
But point is, I think that's a good point to show the meaningless, that when we say meaningless, it's like, okay, that everything that you have in this life, and then you're gone. There is nothing to think about in the afterlife. There is nothing to look forward to lay hold or claim to. It's just, nope, it's over. Then we have no value because there's no moral compass. There's nothing on our hearts written, right? And because there's nothing in the afterlife, there's no reason as a consequence for me to not do any evil, because What is going to happen to me? Nothing. I die, I go off. It is what it is.
That's it.
Lastly, I just think that so we talk about no meaning, no value, which then leads to there's no purpose in life. Like, what is the purpose here then? As much as atheists and agnostics, and they constitutionally have their own right, their right and freedom, they have to hijack some morality from a monotheistic religion and then try to find value and purpose in those things. Because outside of that, if you really look at how an atheist should be looking at things, they would have to agree that it's kill or be killed type of mindset.
Period. Just period.
And I'm going to live in this absurdity, and it is what it is. But I think that an average person would recognize, yeah, nah, I don't want to see my baby sacrificed to the gods. I don't want to see these things happening. And so, but where did that value come from for you to say that? Where did that life? And so I think as much as people want to, blame God for different things, I think, like, if you say, all right, well, let's remove him. Look at what we have. Look at what would happen. It would be terrible. Yes. Now, that's not to say that because of that means God exists. But I'm just saying, if you remove God,
right? Well, it's just another added pro to the pros and cons of God's existence. By showing the reality of removing God from society, look at what kind of society we'd have. Is that what we want? So therefore, it adds value to the fact that God does exist, because we have these current things existing that helps create this morality that gives us a greater good.
Absolutely.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I follow what you're saying. Yeah, so generally speaking, from there, the discussion will then go into well, if God does exist, then why does he allow X, Y, and Z?
Right.
But I just want to remind the viewers here that will be another discussion, number one. But number two, the question has changed now. The question is no longer, even though...
Basically, we're no longer discussing, does he exist? Now the question is, well, since he does exist, why is he allowing certain things to happen?
Yeah.
Now, again, we're degrading his existence. We're always trying to find a way, society is always trying to find a way to degrade his existence, to keep him far from them having to accept and then be morally responsible and accountable to his existence.
Yeah. And that's mostly the bottom line.
Right.
I'm not saying everybody who's on their quest searching for truth, who asks, does God exist, feels this way, but mostly. The reality is that the person wants to be God. They want to be that supreme being. They want to be that greatest maximum being. They want to be able to say, I'm going to do this, therefore I am. This is kind of why we really, really love democracy so much. It's because there's a part of us that wants to be like, I want to control more things. Like, I want to be able to say, I want this, I want that. And I'm not against democracy, by the way. I'm just saying that there's a part of us in there that's like, I want to be able to say this, do this, and control everything. And the reality is that when you look at it more so, that's our biggest beef with God. God is saying, no, actually, I'm more intelligent. Where were you when I created the seas? Where were you when I... And we don't like that. It's like, who does this guy think he is that he can say this is wrong and this is right? No, I don't think that way. I think this is good. So essentially, the beef isn't so much that there isn't evidence. The beef is so much that, why do I have to be morally responsible to you when I have the free will to not? And so I think that's important as well to understand this discussion. So from everything we've ran down, I think that it is very plausible, right? It's more likely than any other reason of a cause that God does exist, that he's spaceless, that he's timeless, that he's intelligent enough to create a universe so fine-tuned, that he's personal, and that he never began to exist. He always existed. And I think from there, it leads us to start answering more questions about who is this God? Is he the God of the Quran? Is he the God of the Bible? Is he the God of just the Old Testament? Who is this God.
Right.
And I think that's a better starting point to move in the direction of than it is to just say, I'm gonna pray for you. I don't know what's going on with
Right.
you. I think to move a person from being an atheist to saying, all right, I believe in a higher power, I just don't know who it is, we can work from there, and we can ask God to equip us and prepare us. So
If you do get an atheist to go from point of God does not exist to a point of, all right, so maybe he does exist. I don't subscribe to him right now, and I don't know who he is, but I'm giving you that. You do that, then you should be able to motivate yourself to keep having a conversation with this person to bring to the next step to identifying the God of the Bible.
absolutely. Absolutely. So hopefully these points, these thoughts will allow you to want to engage with someone in good, healthy discussion. That if somebody asks you, does God exist? After you get through your personal experience, you can then say, well, actually, there is some scientific evidence. Actually, there is some philosophy. I actually have this nice, logically valid argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. So, yeah. Hopefully, you are equipping yourself. And that's what we want to do here at Real Talk. It's not just we're always moving to glorify the name of God, but in different ways. So, you have anything else to say, Pastor Steve?
No, sir. This was good. Hopefully, y'all listen.
All right. Be on the lookout for episode 31. God bless.
Later.
Hey, thank you everyone for watching episode 30. Continue to like the video, share the video, leave your comments. Make sure you do your homework to get one more subscriber to Watch Righteous Unity.
One more subscriber.
One more subscriber to the Righteous Unity YouTube channel and to watch the Real Talk episodes. And there's one more thing that you should do. Pastor Steve?
Pray.
Okay, that's always essential. But make sure you click the notification bell so that you can see when the next episode of Real Talk will be dropping.
That too.
God bless.